Good morning. My name is Andrew Hogel, and I am a hearing officer for the Colorado Department of Transportation, which we will refer to as the department or as CDOT. Today is April 7th, 2023, and it is now 10:01 a.m. This is a permanent rulemaking hearing pursuant to the Administrative Procedure Act found at Section 24.4.103 of the Colorado Revised Statutes to hear oral testimony concerning the Colorado State Infrastructure Bank rules. During this rulemaking hearing, we refer to these administrative rules as the rules. This hearing is being conducted virtually through Zoom. The hearing is being recorded, and the recording will be retained at CDOT. I'm presiding at this permanent rulemaking hearing based upon a delegation of authority from the Transportation Commission of Colorado, which we will refer to as the Transportation Commission. Section 43.1.113.5 of the Colorado Revised Statutes authorizes the Transportation Commission to promulgate and amend the rules. With us here today are Sari Weichbrot, David Ulane, and Cheryl Nibby from the department, and Kathy Young from the Attorney General's office. I'm now going to walk through our hearing agenda so that you know what to expect. First, staff will establish that CDOT has met all of the procedural requirements required by the Administrative Procedure Act. Then staff will give a presentation on the proposed rule revisions. After that, participants will have the opportunity to give verbal comments. Comments will be time limited to ensure that everyone who wishes to speak concerning the proposed rules may do so. Finally, I will make a finding as to whether the rulemaking proceeding, including this hearing, was conducted in compliance with the Administrative Procedure Act. I'll prepare a complete record of the hearing and forward the record and the proposed rules to the Transportation Commission for final consideration and approval. This record will be kept on file with the department's permanent rulemaking records. Okay, let's begin with a brief presentation on the rulemaking process from CDOT staff.
Sorry, trying to juggle. Thank you, Hearing Officer Hogel. I'm Sari Weichbrot, the Rules Advisor at CDOT. The Administrative Procedure Act has requirements to ensure that the public is properly notified of proposed rules and has an opportunity to provide input on the rules. I will briefly summarize the steps we took to meet these requirements. All documentation has been provided to the hearing officer, is posted on our proposed rules webpage, and will be retained in a permanent rulemaking file at CDOT. On February 16, 2023, the Transportation Commission adopted a resolution allowing CDOT to proceed with this rulemaking and delegating the authority to hold this hearing to a hearing officer. On February 28th, CDOT filed the proposed permanent rules, including the hearing date, time, and registration link of today's hearing on the Secretary of State's website. CDOT also filed the proposed permanent rules and hearing information with the Department of Regulatory Agencies, or DORA. This triggered an email to members of the public who have signed up on the DORA website to be notified of any CDOT or transportation-related rulemaking. CDOT then sent emails with the proposed rules and notice of the hearing to two groups, our stakeholder group and our interested party group, which consists of anyone who has notified CDOT directly that they want to be notified of all CDOT rulemaking. Our public notice of this rule was published in the Colorado Register on March 10th, 2023. As today is April 7th, we've met the requirement to hold our hearing no earlier than 20 days after notice was published. In addition, the proposed rules and hearing information have been continuously published on the CDOT rules website since February 28th. We accepted written comments until March 31st, but we did not receive any. We did hold a stakeholder meeting in early February prior to commencing the rulemaking process and had one stakeholder attend, and he is with us today. And I have promoted him to a panelist because this is a manageable, this is a very manageable group. So you can use the raised hand feature when we get to that point, but you do have the ability now to be seen more easily. I'll provide all exhibits to the Transportation Commission for their consideration, and I will maintain the entire permanent rulemaking record at CDOT. I would offer all hearing exhibits into the record for your consideration, Mr. Hearing Officer. I would ask for permission to correct any scrivener's errors in the rule documents should that be necessary prior to presenting them to the Transportation Commission for adoption. I did make one edit since the rule was posted to change Ms. Knibbe's title from co-SIB administrator to co-SIB manager, which is the change we had made elsewhere in the rule. and in our procedural directive that accompanies the rule. So just of note, we don't feel that's a substantive change. I would also ask that you find that all statutory requirements of the Administrative Procedure Act have been met at the end of this public hearing.
Thank you. The exhibits have been entered into the record, and you may now explain the substance of the proposed rules.
Okay, I am going to try and now share my screen. I used to have an intern to help me. Okay, are you seeing the screen? Great.
Yes.
Wonderful. So just a little background on the rule. This is going to be very familiar to our public attendee because he attended the stakeholder meeting, but we're going to call this the SIB rule. It was adopted in 2009 and has not been updated since then. It governs the process for applying for, awarding, and overseeing state infrastructure bank loans. It defines eligible applicants and includes project evaluation criteria. Most of the loan requests we receive are for aviation projects. Stakeholders for this rule are current loan recipients and eligible future applicants. But like I said, we expanded outreach to, everyone we could possibly reach. Our proposed changes are as follows. Most of the red in the rule is updated formatting and renumbering and changes to comply with newer accessibility requirements from the state. Substantive changes are found in Chapter 2, definitions, Chapter 4, disbursement of monies, and Chapter 7, which is a new section for declaratory orders. So in Chapter 2, we deleted some unnecessary definitions that we just didn't need. We added a definition for the Colorado Aeronautical Board, or CAB. We try to capitalize our defined terms throughout the rule, so a lot of the changes you'll see reflect that attempt at consistent capitalization. We also try to modernize our language, so taking out the shalls in places where they really don't seem necessary. Specifically, the proposed changes in Chapter 4 are shown on this slide. The majority of the changes reflect the addition of authority for the Colorado Aeronautical Board to approve aviation projects rather than requiring that they make a recommendation to the Transportation Commission, who would then act as the approval authority. It just kind of removes a step in the process that nobody seems to think is necessary and should streamline approvals for aviation projects, which, as I said, are the bulk of the requests that we receive. We, as I stated, changed the terminology from COSIB administrator to COSIB manager. There was a place where also that COSIB manager was described as said agent, and we just made it more clear by adding COSIB manager, just a little bit of language cleanup. And then in 4.3, we added passenger facility charges as a revenue source that can be considered when the loan request is being evaluated. And then in Chapter 7, this is standard language that CDOT has been adding to each rule during our rulemaking process if we haven't updated the rule within maybe the last 5 years. And we just keep it the same in every rule. So that is what we have for the substantive changes. And I think you can move on.
Thank you. Okay, well then at this time, we'll start with the testimony phase of the rulemaking hearing. Each speaker, all one of them, will have 3 minutes to speak. Please limit your comments to these proposed rules. Please state your name fully and identify the name of any organization that you are representing. The hearing today is to receive public testimony, and the focus is on you, the public. However, CDOT staff may ask something to clarify that if it was misunderstood in the rules, or ask a question to be certain they understand your public comment. So if you would like to proceed, please go ahead.
My name is Chris Padilla. I'm with the Colorado Springs Airport, and I support all of the changes.
Short and sweet. I love this kind of hearing. Fantastic.
Thanks for taking the
Thank
time,
you.
Chris. Really appreciate it.
Yes.
No,
Thank you for taking the time.
yeah, thanks for letting me join, and this has been really interesting to see.
All right, I don't think I've missed anyone, but Sari, have we missed anyone? Okay, seeing no other raised hands, no other attendees. That concludes the testimony portion of this hearing. Comments are now closed. I'll ask staff to include the registration list for this hearing and the recording of today's hearing in the record that'll be provided to the Transportation Commission. And at this time, I'll make my findings that the Transportation Commission properly delegated authority to a hearing officer to conduct this hearing, that the department has met the requirements of the Administrative Procedure Act, and that this rulemaking hearing has been conducted in conformance with the Act. I will take all written comments and oral testimony found in the record regarding these proposed rule revisions under advisement when I make my recommendation to the entire Transportation Commission on whether to adopt the proposed rule revisions or to further amend them based on the record. I will grant the department's request to correct any Scrivener's errors prior to submitting the rules to the Transportation Commission for final consideration. And finally, I see that the public did have an opportunity to comment through oral testimony and written comments at this hearing. All right, this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you all for your participation in this public rulemaking process.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.